Good evening, goddammit. Welcome to the MrWarrenHayes show. Why am I out of focus? Why am I not centered properly? My God, welcome. Welcome, everyone, one and all. Tonight, Thursday, it is the 14th of October. I've got stuff flying out of my mouth. I just brushed my teeth. How is that possible? I'm like, look, Warren, you have to go brush your teeth before you go out and start speaking to people like in public kind of thing, right? And so here I am. Yeah, and I brush my teeth and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm talking, I feel like I've got shit flying out of my mouth. And I'm not even centered properly. Look, this is better. What a chaotic... Shut up, phone! What are you talking about, phone? What a chaotic evening tonight. So we've barely started, but welcome. Hey, Thursday evening, MrWarrenHayes is with you here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. You know what that entails. Wrestling talk for the next couple of hours, let's be honest. It's 90 minutes, an hour. No, let's just be real. I think at this this stage of our relationship, we can definitely be honest with each other. We're going to be here for about 2 hours. And thank you for joining me here live tonight on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, because that is what I that's what I appreciate. I appreciate people coming out here every Thursday to join me and listen to me rant and have a nice little time in the chat room as well as things go on live here. And look, we've got Robert Larry, who's here. Nice to see you, Robert. Kelly Tonjes here as well. Nice to see you. We've got our boy Ben, Phantomark82, facebook.com/Phantomark82. Get yourself some music. Nice to see you, Ben. We've got AK Germany, who's here. Nice to see you, super guy, super gal, super person. And Mr. Fretz as well. Look at all these great people here joining us live at the youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes address. You know, if you're already here and you're already watching this and you're already like, hey, you know what? As AK Germany pointed out, looks like Warren is in AEW Dynamite withdrawal tonight. Could be. If you're enjoying all of this nonsense so far, consider giving the video a like. And that kind of stuff really helps out. Or even if you're listening to this on demand, that's great as well. You can also leave a nice little like. Or, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, the MrWarrenHayes Show is available in audio format as a podcast wherever good podcasts are distributed. Well, then, give us a like, a subscription, a follow, a review. Reviews are cool. Reviews are great. I really like the fact that people occasionally leave reviews, and that, Apple's like, oh, well, if people like this, then maybe we should continue. So this is all what we're about, right? I honestly don't know. I'm focused. Don't get me wrong. My brain operates in a way where there's like so many things that happen at once. It's like everything sort of wants to come out at the same time, but that's not how human communication works. I think the day that we are able to interface with a species of aliens that allows multiple thoughts to be communicated at once, I am going to be the greatest orator they will have ever come upon. For sure. That is for absolutely sure. But hey, you know what? Thank you all for being here. And don't forget also to follow, give a follow over and check out belltobells.com. That's BELLTOBELLES.com. Because that's your Women's Wrestling Wire. And we're on the cusp of announcing. What am I doing here? Am I suddenly Italian? What am I doing? We are on the cusp. We are on the verge of announcing something absolutely fantastic. Some big stuff. Entertaining things. Not the kind of, someone is going to make a big announcement. It's like, I've got a big announcement coming up. Ooh, I wonder what it could be. And then on the day of the announcement, hey everyone, so my big announcement is I have bought a new suit and it's blue. My previous suit was black. Not that kind of announcement. No, something fun for you, the viewers, the listeners of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Absolutely. So that, that's cool stuff. Be sure to check it out on Bell to Bells. Follow us on Twitter at belltobells.com as well. That's very good. That's also very good. My G1 coverage is ongoing. Of course, the second, we had, I've been covering every 2 nights, right? Every 2 nights of action. So Block A, Block B, boom, I do a live stream. I do some coverage of the G1 Climax 31. We had Block B happen earlier today, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but I'm obviously, since I'm doing the main podcast today, I'm not getting into, I'm not doing specific coverage. I'll be back tomorrow with the rest of my coverage. But if you want to follow my coverage, which is all there, it's all there in podcast. It's all here on the YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, I have even a playlist set up with just specifically that coverage right there. So if you want to check it out, I go in depth for every evening, every 2 nights of action. I'm there, and it's wrapping up the G1. But I'm going to be talking about the G1 in a little bit. So don't forget that. Don't forget that there's a Discord that you can join. Of course, if you enjoy the chat here and you'd be like, man, I'd like to continue this wonderful chat with these wonderful wrestling fans here that hang out on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Well, they all hang out in the Mr. Warren Hayes Discord. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. YouTube, not YouTube. The link is in the description. That's something here. So don't forget that there's the post stream after for members. Only members of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel here get access to the Discord. No, everyone has access to the Discord. But the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel members, they have access to the post stream that I do immediately after this one. And tonight we're going to be talking about Queen's Crown and the King of the Ring tournaments. I'm looking to get your thoughts on them. I want to get your predictions, but I also want to get your thoughts on it overall. As you probably assume, I have some thoughts of my own. They'll be upcoming for sure. So be sure to become a member. It's a great way to show some support for the stream. For everything that I do. So pop in and we'll have a good time. I take some Discord calls, chat with a lot of the folks in the chat as well. It's a good time. You know what else is a good time? Leaving some super chats, which is another good way to show some support for the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. And I will read your question or comment live and on the air. And tonight, if you have questions that you'd like to ask me, screw the format tonight. I'm in that kind of mood. Like, I do have things I want to talk about, but if you guys have questions that you want to ask me, drop them in a super chat, and I will gladly answer them as we go along. We've already got some super chats that have to do with the G1 31 Climax here, but let's get to it. I mean, there's only one thing keeping us right now from actually enjoying some G1 Climax talk right now, and it's the fact that we haven't started the weekly wrestling inspection yet. So let's go. Oh man, I would like to, just before we jump in, I was just scouring the chat real quick. I would like to extend my sincerest condolences to Mr. Fret's regular viewer, long-time viewer of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show, whose father passed away last week. I'm extremely sorry for your loss, man. I hope you're doing okay. Hope you're hanging in there. Yeah, a terrible thing. Hope you're doing all right, man. Hopefully you're here to sort of get your mind off of things. Hopefully I'll help you do that. So let's roll Chris and William Davis. Pew pew. Nice to see. What? I don't know. Pew pew. Nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the show. All right. The G1. Hey, look. Listen. The G1 is wrapping up. If you want to believe this, okay, it is coming to a close. The G131 that occurred this year. There's only 2 nights left, so we are really in the nitty gritty. I've caught up. I'm caught up on everything. I took the time to do it. The thing is look, I'm not going to go into detail for every match that happened. If you want that, and why wouldn't you? I'll be doing, like I said at the start of the show, I'll be doing my complete deep dive of the tournament of the last 2 nights of the tournament tomorrow. Yeah, join me on the stream or listen to it on your own time. Either or, it is fantastic. But yeah, everything is coming to an end, and hopefully we are going to get some fun resolution to all of this. And sort of to start to put a pin on in this tournament, Nick Wolf basically points out 2 very important elements that happened in this tournament via super chat. Thank you very much, Nick Wolf, for the super chat, by the way. It says, good evening, sir. Good evening. Zack Sabre is God. Taichi is our Lord. 2 guys who had very, very strong performances all throughout the G1. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm not as big on Taichi as many other people are. There's a lot of folks who, it's like Nick Wolf. He is our holy emperor, right? He surprised me much more than this even started last year. He surprised me. I think he's very good, but I don't think he's as great as a lot of people make him out to be. But he had a very strong G1. Zack Sabre Jr. had a remarkably good G1. Incredible start right out the gate. Decimating just about everyone in his path. Didn't quite turn out as well. It sort of evened out. Started getting some losses. I would have thought he would have really zoomed through everyone once he got through. The likes of once he started getting through the likes of Kota Ibushi and Shingo and once he got through Ibushi and Shingo, essentially I was like, oh my god, okay, our boy Zack here, and he defeated Naito. Let's not forget, he's the only guy in the entire A block that defeated Shingo, Naito, before Naito had to be removed. We had to forfeit his spot, basically. He's had a fantastic tournament, absolutely. But despite that, despite these really strong showings, this G1, has not been the stuff of legends. I had someone reach out to me in the Discord after my most recent recap this week. And the person was like, hey, you really got me excited, in regard, like, I know nothing about Japanese wrestling, but you really got me excited to watch this. And I'm like, cool. Like, really? Okay. Like, I couldn't ask for, a nicer compliment, quite frankly, when you do the stuff that I do. If I talk about stuff passionately about that, people will be like, oh, I should check this out. Well, that's fantastic, right? But then at the same time, I'm like, what a weird time to get into New Japan because of Well, because of all the reasons that I constantly talk about here, because of COVID that's still very, very rampant in Japan, because of the restrictions in the buildings, so the buildings are all half empty. The reactionless crowds, well, they're not reactionless, but at some point, when all you hear is clapping, it sort of drones on you for a while. Not exactly the easiest watch. So it's a weird time to get into New Japan, and it's a weird G1 to get into, because usually I tell people, if you want to get into New Japan, this is the best time of year. This is the tournament this tournament is a highlight of New Japan. And if you want to understand why people love it so much, why they get into the work rate and the stories and so on and so forth, this is the time of year to do it. But this G1 has been so, I don't know, fine that it doesn't feel like a G1. Like usually at this point, right? We've got 4 or 5 match of the year candidates that have been lined up. We're all sitting here talking about how Tomohiro Ishii carried the friggin' tournament again this year. We're talking about the weird decisions made at the top, at the top of the blocks and so on and so forth. I mean, we can talk about weird decisions made at the top of the blocks if we want to, but there's a lot more atmosphere and excitement. And it's not that we didn't have any good matches. And don't get me wrong, all right? Like, I think, Okada versus Tanahashi at the start of the tournament, and their long legacy of legendary matches, I thought it was very, very good. I don't think it's like it's not a match that transcends or will be necessarily remembered fondly in the body of their work, but it was still an extremely good match to kick off. Shingo and Ishii was fantastic. Chase Owens and Okada from a couple of nights ago, thought was one of the better matches of the show, because I was up on my seat popping for some stuff. I was like, oh, they got me. Kota Ibushi versus Great Okan, Kazuchika Okada versus Tai Chi was very good. Like, it's not as if it was boring. It's not as if we were not entertained. But I think this year's G1 was a G1 for New Japan fans and for maybe the little more hardcore. Because again, a lot of the international stars that they have weren't there. The Gaijin stars, a lot of them are overseas. They didn't bring in any. They didn't bring in a John Moxley this year. There's always someone in that tournament that is a complete outsider or close to being an outsider that comes in for the tournament and works it. There's all these things, right, that weren't part of this year's G1, which was kind of a bummer. But again, we understand. We're all caught in the same problem with all these restrictions, right? We're all in the same boat here, so of course it's going to affect our entertainment. It's not the exciting. It wasn't the exciting experience that it usually is. And I think this is the one that's going to be remembered as the G1 that really ate it because of the COVID restrictions. But I think there's also a counterpoint to be made that this is the G1 that will be remembered for under guys pulling off exceedingly good performances, going above and beyond anything that we had established as an expectation in regards to these guys. Like Chase Owens, like Tongaloa, like Tama Tonga, Yoshihashi, right? Guys that are perennial undercarders, losers, who are, whose job is to take the pins. Maybe not as much the Gorillas of Destiny, but the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tongaloa, as far as they go, they're a tag team, right? So not necessarily used to seeing them in individual competition, but yet here they are. A lot of these guys who were in this tournament this year, you feel they were there because we didn't have the full breadth of access to the Will Ospreays and the Jay Whites and maybe others, right? Maybe a John Moxley or, any other kind of trades that could have occurred. Who knows? Like, this is going to be the big what if, right? So, having a lot of these guys in the tournament at this point is like, oh, well, we're putting in bodies because we need friggin' 20 wrestlers to populate this tournament. So the thing that was cool about it, though, is that all four of those guys that I mentioned here, and you could talk about Yujiro Takahashi, the Tokyo Beam, for a little bit, because I think he had out the gate he was very strong, but I think as the tournament went on, he started slipping, and that kind of bummed me out. But not that it bummed me out, but it kind of derailed the expectations, especially when you saw guys like Chase Owens. Chase Owens, the guy who was constantly there to eat the pins, to take the pinfall in the 6-man tags, in the straight up tag matches. He's always the guy who ends up on his back, and he's having great performances. You have Yujiro over there on the side doing whatever Yujiro's doing. You're like, man, really? Guys who just dove in, saw the opportunity, and started chewing at it. I think this is how we're going to remember. Well, this is the other side of the coin of the G131 Climax. If one side is it wasn't as good because of COVID, the other side was the undercard guys that they brought in here just tore it up. It was really something spectacular. And I really think it's a talking point when we talk about this in a few years from now, or even next year. But we are now just one night left for Block A, Block B. Let's start talking about Block B, okay? Because Block B is really simple. It's really, really easy, all right? You don't have to worry. This one, as far as everything that has to do with the finals here, the final night, who's going to win the block, I think it's pretty clear. Right up until today, there were 3 guys who were in the running. 3 guys who were in double-digit points. You had Evil, who was at 12. Then you had Kazuchika Okada and Jeff Cobb, who are undefeated throughout the tournament. So they both had 14 points going into today. So there was a lot of speculation, right? Like, okay, well, who's going to win what, and if Evil wins. The main thing was, if Evil wins, defeats Jeff Cobb, that brings Evil to 14 points. So then you have 4 guys who are at 14 points, which could probably then carry into the last night, and you could be like, oh, who's going to get who's going to be the winner kind of thing. But that was settled today. It had to be settled today. You couldn't carry it over because Evil and Jeff Cobb were having a match today. So one of these 2 dudes was going to lose. Turns out that it was Evil who lost. So Evil at 12 points cannot win the block. Jeff Cobb is at 16. So even if Evil wins his match on the last night, he can't beat Cobb point differential. The other big one, of course, is Kazuchika Okada. Okada came in with 14 points, had a match with Tama Tonga where Tama Tonga pulled out the upset victory on this night. And he got himself a win, and that sort of spoils the broth a little bit for Kazuchika Okada, or at least you'd think it would be. It would have spoiled the broth, because then he's at 14 points, and his last match next Monday? Next week anyway. I don't quite remember the date off the top of my head, but his next match is against Kazuchika Okada. Against Jeff Cobb, excuse me. So, the clash of these two was inevitable towards the end, but now Okada is like 2 points behind. So you're like, oh, well, Okada absolutely has to win. But the minute that Evil lost his match, it boiled down to Okada and Cobb, regardless as to whether Okada won his match against Tama Tonga or not. Tama Tonga gets a win, good for him, but it doesn't add any extra impact. It doesn't add any extra drama. The fact that Evil lost left entirely the situation entirely between Cobb and Okada. Cobb at 16 points, Okada at 14, and Evil at 12. He's out. So, I mean, there wasn't any extra drama there. So we're moving into the final match next week. If Okada wins, he ties with Cobb at 16 points, but he has the tiebreaker because if you hold the win on your opponent, on the other guy, basically, if you hold the win throughout the tournament on the other guy, that breaks a tie. In this case, if Okada beats Jeff Cobb on the final night, well, he'll also hold the tiebreaker. So Okada wins. So it's really down to Cobb and Okada. Who is going to win that one? And I want to say hello to Kristen Ashley, the First Lady of the MrWarrenHayes Show. Yeah. Good to see you. So this is where we're at right now. So that's the situation. This is where we're at. Whoever wins in the main event next week between Cobb and Okada wins the block. It's just that simple. Now, if we talk about Block A, that is a whole other 9 yards. Are you guys ready for this? Because our boy J.K. Schwal left us a super chat. Thank you very much, J.K. And he says, haven't watched today yet, but what are my boy Kenta's chances of winning Block A? Really hoping my math is right on current standings. Block A, as it stands right now, has 4 people tied for first place with 12 points. All right? We have Kota Ibushi, we have Kenta, we have Zack Sabre Jr., and we have Shingo. Now, I am not even remotely going to take credit for this, because I'm going to throw this over to Chris Samsa over on Twitter at the Chris Samsa, who provides stats for English commentary for New Japan, among his other things. A guy you should follow if you're into New Japan, because he's got all these stats down, fantastic previews. Now, this is how it boils down to, okay? According to his math, the person who has the largest percentage of winning the Block B is Kenta. Kenta has, there are more scenarios in which he can win the block. Ibushi and Zack Sabre Jr. are the second most, have the second most amount, and Shingo only wins Block B in two scenarios. Do you want me to break these down a little bit? Okay. If the final night of Block B ends with Ibushi defeating Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Tangaloa, Shingo defeating Yujiro Takahashi, and Ishii defeating Yano, that means that Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo all tied at 14. Zack Sabre Jr. has the tiebreakers on both those dudes, so he wins Block B. Next scenario, Ibushi defeats Kenta. Tangaloa defeats Zack Sabre Jr., which is possible, by the way. Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Ishii defeats Yano. That means Ibushi and Shingo are tied for 14, but Ibushi has the tiebreaker on Shingo. Shingo advances. Ibushi advances. And I think these are results that are highly possible. I think all of this is extremely possible. That Ibushi wins. Yeah, that Ibushi wins. Tanga Loa wins. Shingo wins. And Ishii wins as well. I think that's all very, very plausible. All makes sense with their opponents, you know. Because Ibushi versus Kenta is the main event. So they're probably going to stretch that one out to the very end. Like if I'm booking, that's what I'm doing. Next scenario, Ibushi defeats Kenta. Tanga Loa defeats Zack Sabre Jr. Yujiro defeats Shingo. And Ishii defeats Yano. In this situation, Ibushi is the only wrestler who gets 14 points. So you'd have to have Zack, Shingo, and Zack and Shingo lose. Ishii wins. Ibushi's the only wrestler at 14 points. Another scenario. Ibushi defeats Kenta. Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tanga Loa. Yujiro defeats Shingo. And Ishii defeats Yano. That brings us to a place where Ibushi and Zack Sabre Jr. are both tied at 14. But Zack Sabre Jr. holds the tiebreaker over Ibushi, so he wins. In a situation where Ibushi defeats Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tanga Loa, Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Yano defeats Ishii, Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo are all at 14. So we go back to the first scenario. Zack Sabre Jr. has the tiebreakers over Ibushi and Shingo. And that means he goes forward. I mean, look. Here's one. Let me just pull one up here. Here's one where Kenta wins. Okay, now Kenta here might win if he defeats Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Tanga Loa, Shingo defeats Yujiro, and Ishii defeats Yano, which is a situation that seems plausible to me. Kenta defeating Ibushi is the biggest what if, but he absolutely has to defeat Ibushi if he wants to be considered for victory. But then even if Zack Sabre Jr. wins, even if Shingo wins, even if Ishii wins, they're all tied at 14, right? Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo, they're all tied at 14. Kenta, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo all have tiebreakers against each other. Head to head, next level down, which means Ibushi and Ishii at 12. Kenta then has 2 tiebreakers. Zack Sabre Jr. has 1 and Shingo has 1. Kenta wins the block. That's one of the ways that he can win. I'm not going to go through all 16 scenarios, but as you can see, it is much more convoluted for Block B because there's so many people at the top. So that's exciting. That's going to be a fun show to watch from top to bottom. Because, you know, even today, watching the Block B, you know, and, you know, with Okada, Jeff Cobb, having Okada in his main event match, and then having Cobb and Evil in their match that had direct implications. Everything else on the card had no implications on the survivability of the survivability on the tournament. So I'm like, all right, you sort of zone out on a couple of things. It's not quite as interesting, not quite as compelling, which is normal because we're heading towards the end of the tournament. But I'm excited. I'm excited to talk more about it tomorrow. My 2-night recap, and we'll break down all of these scenarios. I'm excited. I am really, really excited to do it. So come back and join me tomorrow for my second to last G1 Climax recap. I'm excited. I love tournament wrestling, as all of you know. Going to talk about more tournament wrestling here. provided to us this time by the fine folks at World Wrestling Entertainment. The Queen's Crown Tournament and the King of the Ring Tournament started off last Friday on WWE SmackDown. Have you guys heard about this? I want to know your predictions, Chad. Let me know who you think is going to come out on top of this tournament. You know, I made a big deal out of it, and I'm gonna talk about. Just gonna mention the reason I made a big deal out of it, because I like tournament wrestling. I really do. I'm a sucker for tournament wrestling. I think there is nothing more appropriate for a wrestling fan than a wrestling tournament, because it combines the wrestlers, the stuff that you like, a little bit of drama, plus all the speculation that wrestling fans like to do. I don't know if you heard, wrestling fans like to speculate about things. So this is the kind of thing I like to do. But to speculate, you need the brackets. And I was going around last week on Twitter and I was like, has WWE released the brackets? Has anyone released the brackets? Hell, even Xavier Woods hit Twitter. And I was like, I'm looking for the brackets. Has anyone seen the brackets? And I'm like, this is insane. You're starting your tournament this Friday? And you're not giving us the brackets? It's the most fun part. To look at the brackets and then be like, oh, this should be done. This is how it's going to happen. Like, why didn't WWE give the available pools for SmackDown and Raw during the draft? That's the fun part of it for anyone who's into that stuff. You look at the list. You're like, this is what WWE. This is how things are going to be set up. And then you're like, what? No, nothing, nada. No brackets, no draft pools. So how do we get it? How do we get excited? How do we get excited as fans? New Japan announces the G1. We all get excited for the G1, but we get really excited, and then people start talking about it when the blocks get announced. Could you imagine going into the G1 and not knowing what the bracket, what the blocks are? Right up until they start announcing matches, I'm like, what? This is dumb. Because that's not fun. You guys remember fun? I like fun. You know, WWE, they like their wrestlers when they like to have fun. Why can't their fans like to have fun? I still want to point out something. When they say that, she likes to have fun, he likes to have fun, I'm like, how is that a character trait? Who doesn't like to have fun? No, and I'm serious here. How is that something that defines your character? I like fun. Maybe you like to have more fun than a regular person. That's a trait. That's a character trait right there. But like straight up, she likes to have fun. It's like this person enjoys meals. Okay. Look, I'm off on a little tangent here. Back to the tournament. So the thing here with the fun, right? Hey, Rick Poling, good to see you. Welcome, Supersonic X and Certified Hustler. Nice to see you all. So this is the thing, right? You get a tournament set up, you want people to talk about it, and look, and that's the thing, right? This is the thing. It was such a simple, it's a simple way to get people talking about your thing and getting excited about it on social media. It's something you call like free publicity. It's free advertising, and you end up owning a conversation among fans. Yeah, people start talking about you on podcasts, you know, just like they do with the draft and so on and so forth. Then people are like, bracketology for the for the King of the Ring, for the Queen's Crown. Cool, you know? It's all good publicity that you don't spend a dime on. You just have to put out some brackets. Now, of course, this, implies that WWE has a plan, right? That they've planned this out, that they just didn't pull out the names on a whiteboard the day of, right? Of course. So let's start with the King of the Ring, because I've got slightly less to say about that. See, I think it was I think it's a solid tournament. I really think that they do have some great people in here that made it compelling. And if they had released these brackets, people would have been like, oh, this is cool, right? Rey Mysterio versus Sami Zayn and Cesaro versus Finn Balor was our first round SmackDown matches. Sami Zayn advanced. And Finn Balor defeated Cesaro to advance as well. But Cesaro's done. He's fish food. He's back exactly where he was before having a match of the year contenders match with Roman Reigns earlier this winter. Right back to where he was. Push Cesaro. What, are you kidding me? So Cesaro versus Finn Balor advanced, and I enjoyed that match. I thought it was pretty good. Then on the Raw side, we had Xavier Woods versus Ricochet. I don't have to tell you the story about Xavier Woods wanting to win the King of the Ring tournament, right? I think we're all aware of I think we're all aware of the of how much he's coveting winning King of the Ring. Like, it's it's a bit of a nerd thing, it's a bit of a geek thing. It works, it fits him perfectly, don't get me wrong. As if to say, my boys here in the New Day, they've been, world champions and all. I just want to be King of the Ring. And let's be frank, he's been lobbying for this for the past 2 years or so. And chat, would you agree that that wrestling fans in general are supportive of the idea of Xavier Woods winning the King of the Ring tournament? Press Y in the chat for yes. Press N in the chat for no, Warren, I disagree with that assessment. But I feel overall that Xavier Woods has the immediate sympathy of the audience to win this tournament, right? So, to me, excuse me, it was no surprise that he defeated Ricochet on the opening at the opening salvo. Notwithstanding the fact that Ricochet is treated like a geek, right? But I think that in this situation here, he had I think Xavier Woods was the natural winner here. And then Jinder Mahal, former WWE champion, Jinder Mahal, defeated Kofi Kingston in a weird one. I'm not sure I would have gone with this decision. I'm not sure I would have done that. Because look, you know what I tell y'all sometimes? I feel like WWE overthinks booking. I think they overthunk this one a little too much. Because you had right here, Kofi defeats Jinder, you have the immediate semifinal match that everyone was like, what would happen? And this is where we're at. We could have got Kofi versus Xavier, and right here, right there, look at what happens. You capitalize on an extra layer of emotion between these two wrestlers because they're partners. They're well-documented good friends. They're buddies, tag team partners, stablemates. They watch out for each other. A whole layer of emotion and personal stakes to it. Because then the audience gets involved. They're like, well, what's going to happen? Who's going to win? Woods or Kingston? And how are they going to react to each other in the ring? I don't think either guy would lay down. Or would Kofi be like, they have a really strong match and Kofi at some point is just like, no, I'm just going to drop this because this means so much to Woodsy. And like, there are so many different scenarios and compelling scenarios that could have made this semifinal match so good and interesting to watch. It would have been perfect for the main event of the show. But so instead of giving us that natural story, this natural build that they could have given us here, they throw in Jinder Mahal, who no one cares about. And it's not even a question of, Jinder's I hate him, he's a terrible heel, he can't, like, not even that. It's like, you don't care about Jinder. He had a feud with Drew McIntyre throughout the summer where he didn't wrestle a single time within the build up to that and lost the match at, what was it, SummerSlam, I think? He's a geek. And he's been losing since his return. He's nothing. He's an under guy. He's a jobber. Former WWE champion. Sure, but he's been broken down so hard from that position that now he pops in and you're like, so there's no interest to this match, to Xavier Woods versus Jinder, outside of everyone biting their fingernails and going, I wouldn't put it past WWE to have Xavier lose. And I agree. I wouldn't put it past WWE to have Woods lose here because it's WWE. And by God, so hard for them to try and give their audience something they'd like. And I think it's something that a lot of people are harping on, because in the past 2 decades where WWE ran alone, right, all we could do was sit through their decisions, WWE trying to push the people they wanted to push at us, and us just being there and lapping it up, right? Or the weird booking decisions, whatnot, whatever, right? And now there is another national company who has developed a reputation of giving the audience what they like, of producing matches and match results that will make the audience happy, that will see the favorites win, that will see good moments occur. So when we go back to King of the Ring and we go back to King of the Ring and we see Jinder go ahead, I cannot help but wonder, is this what the people wanted? And I would argue that the people did not want this. I think people would have really dug a Kofi Xavier match, which, for all the reasons I talked about, would have been much more compelling than whatever we're going to get this Monday. And it is this feeling that we have of WWE, always kind of trying to swerve us, right? Because the swerve is so goddamn important. Always trying to swerve us and keep us on our toes and have, give us the unexpected. It's this same feeling that's in the pit of our stomach as we continue with King of the Ring. Like, where people are legitimately saying, Woods is probably going to lose, when it should not be the case. I don't care if Woods winning King of the Ring is predictable. I care about the journey. I care about the path that we get there. And you know what? The outcome of King of the Ring should be Xavier Woods winning the thing. Because imagine a year of him doing the King gimmick, That's going to be a lot of fun because Woods is a legitimately creative guy. But you can't help but think that they're going to pull the rug from under him and be like, swerve, it's going to be Sami Zayn. I'm a huge Sami Zayn guy. Love Sami Zayn. He's a good guy, has a good heart on his shoulders. That's the expression, right? But I don't want him winning King of the Ring. I don't. So that's why I look at this and it kind of frustrates me now because I'm like, WWE, just give the people what they want to see. Give the people what they want to see. Don't concern yourselves with creating these long-term stories. We're going to go down this path and then you'll see. And then don't give us any situations where we're told to let it play out. Just give the people what they want. My God, man. Apron Bump, good to see you. Welcome to the chat. I will be joining the Apron Bump podcast very, very soon. In a couple of weeks. I'm excited for that. Metal Michael, nice to see you, sir. Good to see you, Evan Wright. You have the keys to the house now, apparently. Nice to see you. And Heather as well. Nice to see you as well. And yet I know like Sammy's not going to win because, you know, the finals are happening at Saudi Mania or Saudi Slam. And I'm continuing my non-coverage of the event, right? And I kind of hate how normalized everyone has sort of become in regards to the results, right? In regards to the results, the finals, because of where the event is being held. Oh, Sammy can't go there. Oh, Shayna Baszler can't go there. There's a fair chance that Doudrop can't go there either because of their sexual orientations. I'm like, and so it can't be her. And I hate that this is normal. I hate that this is like part of the discourse where people are going, well, they can't go because it's in Saudi. I know that's a fact, but it shouldn't be normal. This should not be part of our wrestling conversation. We should not be excluding people who can't travel to a country because one of their ethnicity or because of their sexual orientation. Do you hear what I'm saying here? Do you understand what I'm saying? This should not be part of our predictions. This should not be part of our, this is how the match should, this is how the tournament should end. It makes no sense to me that we're doing this in a country, again, that has one of the worst human rights records on the planet. Where you still get flogged for being a homosexual and imprisoned. Flogged! What is this, 1450? Jesus! This is the casual comment that I hear, and there's nothing casual about it. It doesn't make sense. This should not be part of the discussion. This is why I'm choosing not to cover Saudi Slam. Because it shouldn't be acknowledged. There's no airtime that should be given to this. We shouldn't be wringing our hands looking at the card and saying, oh, this is pretty good, this is bad. No, everything about it is awful. So when we're talking about the Queen's Crown tournament, and when we're saying to each other, you know what, Shayna Baszler should be in the finals here, and she should be, the one who tears it up. Oh, well, she probably can't go because she's a lesbian. I'm like, motherfucker, this isn't right. And if you have talent, like you're homegrown, and this, Daniel Bryan has done this, and you have talent who refuses to go. And there's been reports on this in the past. No, we're not going to this because it contravenes, what we believe in. The fuck does it? What does that? What does that? What should that evoke to you? Ungratefulness? No. Should be more along the lines of, I understand why that person's deciding not to go. But then even on top of that, why is your company going there in the first place? Queen's Crown, though. Talked about it. Talk about, the finals. We got the Saudi bullshit out of the way, okay? Now I want to talk about the North American bullshit. Which is, what the fuck is this tournament? What is this? What is this shit? We got all of the matches, all of the qualifying, not the qualifying, but the first round matches were all under 3 minutes. Doudrop and Natalya went 3 minutes. Everything else was under 3 minutes. How do you get into a tournament like that? How does that make it exciting? How is this elevating? Zelina, Carmella, Doudrop? How is this elevating any of them? Having these shit short matches. But Warren, what do we cut then if we give the women longer matches? Roman doesn't need 12 minutes every week. Well, I don't need to watch Dana Brooke for 10 minutes. Well, don't. Keep the squash. Let Shayna squash her. But if all your matches are under 3 minutes, then there's nothing. Nothing is worthwhile. There's nothing worthwhile that comes out of this. If you were excited, hey, if you're a fan of the Diva era, we're right on board here. This is exactly it. We're right on board. Oi, Doudrop and Natalya was just 2 minutes shy of a, I think, was it Kelly versus Melina at WrestleMania 23? I can't remember. Which was about 5 minutes and 35 seconds. Look, if you're a fan of the Divas and you're looking forward for those Divas to return, oh boy, Eva Marie's back. Well, there you go. You get all of these 2-3 minute matches where nothing happens, and most importantly, no one gets over. No one gets over in this type of booking. It's not helping anyone. Because everyone looks like geeks. And straight out the gate. Look, what do you do to get people invested in a tournament? Right? You have to have some crowd favorites win, right? You got to get some baby faces, right? What happens on SmackDown? Both heels win. Zelina and Carmella. And while I like Carmella and I enjoy Zelina as a personality, I think they're both wrong choices. Especially when it comes to Zelina. And you had Liv Morgan. Not the greatest wrestler, but very competent. She's not going to have a barn burner. She's no Sasha Banks. She's no Serena Deeb. But she's fine. More importantly, she has a following. She has an organic base of fans who want her to succeed, who want her to go over, who want her to get the big wins. Why would you not have her go forward in the first round? And yes, I've read the reports that she was scheduled, but she was penciled in to win, but they decided they have to go with Carmella. She was penciled in, sure, but she still didn't win it. It doesn't matter if you were penciled in, if someone else's name is written in ink. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that Liv Morgan is the greatest wrestler in the WWE's women's division. I'm not going to tell you that she's the end all of it. What I am telling you, though, is that she has fans. She has people who are ready to root for her. She comes off as an underdog. And you know what WWE is really good at? Booking underdogs. They're very, very good at doing that. It's the only type of babyface they're able to book. Oh, that and a babyface that's been bullied. A babyface that was bullied when they were young. That's the only other one, right? It baffles me that they're completely unable to just let it go, let her go, and do her thing. I mean, look, her start-stop pushes, and just if the report is true that she was penciled in and then removed, this proves to me that there is a debate backstage as to what to do with her. There clearly is. There's no direction in regards to Liv Morgan. There's people pulling for her, people pulling against her. That's what it tells me. But my God, man, just put your fan favorites in here. I love Piper Niven. Love Viper when she was on Brit Reds before she got gobbled up by NXT. She's fantastic. I love her. I wouldn't go as far as to say she's a fan favorite. She's been geeking out with the Queen of the Geeks for the past 3 months. Not going to tell me she's over. Liv Morgan, while she might not be over with the entirety of the WWE universe, she is over with a large, loud amount of people who would have propulsed this tournament forward for WWE. Like right now, there is nothing to be interested in this tournament. Nothing. There is no reason for you to be interested outside of saying to yourself, finally Shayna Baszler's going to win. But then they're doing it in Saudi Slam. So then people are, oh, she's not going to win, which is absolutely ridiculous. Do you see how crippling this fucking booking is? There is no big field to this tournament. There just is not. And that's wild to me. Because this is the first King of the Ring style tournament that they're doing for the women. And why aren't they making a big deal out of it? Why is it the first ever? Goddamn, WWE likes their first evers. But there's no first ever here. Just go. And that should have been a warning sign. That you've got Johnny Ace and Bruce in the back going, fuck the women, and we don't care. We'll use the horsewomen, but not the rest. You know, at some point, they're going to have to elevate other people. They're going to have to elevate other women. Why aren't they preparing anyone right now? Why aren't they warming anyone up right now? Because there's no undercard. Baffling to me. I want to say hello to the Nick Nutter. Good to see you. And Jermaine Presley. Nice to see you both. Welcome to Warren's House of Angry tonight. Remember, folks, I'm following some notes here. But if you want to ask me a question, if you want me to answer your question on the air, give me a super chat. Ask your question. Ask me anything related to wrestling, and we'll talk about it. Speaking of WWE, have you heard the report that that TLC is going to be canceled in December? I think as far as I don't know if it's officially been canceled, but I think that I don't think it's officially been canceled, but I think we are. But that's the report that's been circulating. Is this a sign, a portend, if you like, that that we're done with stipulation pay-per-views? If so, I am all for it. I am all for it. Because if there's one good thing coming out of the Seth Rollins Edge feud that seems to that you always feel is done, but apparently is not quite done, is that Seth came out on Friday and challenged Seth at Saudi Slam Hell in a Cell. And I'm like, fantastic. And then it reminded me and a whole bunch of other people that, what makes Hell in a Cell fantastic and great is when it appears a little bit out of nowhere for some wrestlers who have, a big reason to blow off their feud, which fits perfectly with Seth and Edge. I think they've had some of the Fed's best matches this year. When you get to the point where these two guys hate each other so much, and that Seth Rollins breaks into Edge's home, and Edge is like, motherfucker, we're Hell in a Selling this now. That makes sense to me. Kind of like a TLC match. You pull out a TLC match, out of nowhere, and you're like, cool, table ladders and chairs. Oh my, this is great. Extreme Rules, which was the last pay-per-view, right? Had one no disqualification match, and a no disqualification match on a pay-per-view called Extreme Rules is, kind of underwhelming. If anything, I prefer to see people being thrown to alligators in the swamp. To me, there's something a little more surprising to that than just turnbuckle pad snapping as someone wants to fly off. Look, probably not, but it did sort of reignite that idea, that impression that, maybe we're on the path to WWE doing away with these stipulation pay-per-views. You could keep Elimination Chamber, because Elimination Chamber, it's a huge structure and you don't want to carry that around all the time. But I always thought that Elimination Chamber was just a convoluted Hell in a Cell, because ultimately that's what it is. It's just an overly complex Hell in a Cell. When Hell in a Cell has the history of being dangerous. It has the history of, bloodshed and maiming and all that great stuff. You pull it out and it suddenly feels important, kind of thing, I like it. I like it if they go down that path. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to enjoy. I won't miss the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view where we have to sit through 2-3 Hell in a Cell matches. Extreme Rules, fine. TLC, fine as well. Because they feel forced. It's like, oh, TLC time's coming up. Hell in a Cell, calling it for the Seth Rollins and Edge feud, it makes sense. I like it. Don't like that it's happening at Saudi Slam, but that's a whole other thing. J.K. Schwal left us a question in Super Chat form. Thank you very much, J.K. Schwal. He says, whenever you're done yelling, Hayes, and would like to be happier and earn that TK paycheck this week. That's right. I'm on the payroll. Very disappointed to see that I am not on the payroll, that I was not on that payroll that was circulating earlier today. I regarding AEW, I don't know if you saw that. A list of AEW wrestlers and the amount of money they make. Apparently Dean Ambrose makes $6 million Is it a year? I don't know. It's just written $6 million. The Young Bucks make $2 million. Is it both? Is it $1 million for Nick, $1 million for Matt? I don't know. It's $2 million. Brandy Rhodes makes $3 million. Dusty Rhodes makes, I think, $2 million, making him officially the highest paid dead person in all of professional wrestling at $2 million. What are we doing? So here's the question. Thoughts on the Notebook Full Gear card? Okay. This is a good. If you have not been hanging around social media, which God bless you, if you haven't, your mind is definitely in a better place. There was a photograph circulating of Anthony Khan in a football stadium. I was going to say arena like a dope. Football stadium, and there's stuff going around him. There's a Jumbotron in the way back with someone holding up a sign that says, "We love Trevor." And he's clutching close to his chest like this. You know, he's got a notepad like this, and he's sort of looking off into the distance. Like there's action happening over there, and Tony is sort of like this, and he's holding his notepad up close to his chest. There's stuff written on the notepad. And upon further inspection, you know, Twitter users and internet users, you know, using those high definition enhancement techniques to zoom in to the notes that he had scribbled down, revealed what appears to be a tentative penciled in card for Full Gear 2021. Lots of stuff scribbled there. Because they're scribbles. It's a guy writing stuff down, and then he's like, and he's circled in all of the matches that are set up there. He circled, you know, wrestlers, which people have immediately assumed to be the winner. And I think one of the biggest the biggest revelation here, I guess, is Kenny Omega will be facing Hangman Page, and Hangman Page was circled. I don't remember the rest. I don't, and I'm sorry, JK. Like I don't remember the other stuff because I thought it was funny more than anything else. But then a lot of people started. Well, here let TK here. Tony Khan notebook. There we go. See. Let's go for the record, okay? This is what we have here. Just for the record, because honestly, I didn't look at the in detail, and you know, because I was sort of like, people are going a little nuts for this. Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page, Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson, something we've seen in WWE. The Inner Circle versus American Top Team, MJF versus Darby Allin. CM Punk versus Wardlow, Thunder Rosa versus Jade Cargill, which would sorry, Thunder Rosa versus Jade Cargill, Christian Cage versus Adam Cole, the Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express, and AEW Women's Champion Britt Baker is also listed for a match, but it is difficult to make out who her planned opponent is. Cody Rhodes is also down as competing, while the notes suggest he will face either Malachi Black, Andrade El Idolo, or Miro. Now, this is hilarious to me. This is funny. Because of course anything can happen, and you know, we could have ourselves a card subject to change here, right? I mean, is it real or is it fake? I'll tell you one thing. Despite this, Tony Khan is a smart fella, and I think he knew exactly what he was doing. I saw a lot of people that look at this dope. You don't operate on the level that TK does. Because remember, we always think about him, in this, the wrestling booker. But he's involved in football/soccer. He's not an idiot. He's not a moron. And I don't think this picture was taken by accident. I think, don't forget, this is a guy who hung out on message boards in the 90s, who was subscribed to the Observer, probably still is, probably never canceled his Observer. He's been on the Observer news boards. He's been in chat rooms. He's been one of us. You don't think that this guy knows how to work us? Yes, he does. And I think he got exactly what he wanted. Got people to keep AEW on the online conversation. And by God, and by the way, if this is the card here, look, if this is the card for Full Gear, there's a lot of it that is exact. Like, there's no big shockers here. Maybe CM Punk versus Wardlow, where you're like, oh, that's interesting. Thunder Rosa versus Jade Cargill. They started hyping that on Friday, right? At Rampage. But everything, and maybe Jon Moxley versus Daniel Bryan is a little bit out of nowhere. They haven't, but everything else, it makes sense in the storylines that they're setting up right now. Paige won the chip. American Top Team in the Inner Circle. They've been at each other. MJF and Darby Allin. Look, you'd have to be a dope to not think that MJF and Darby Allin aren't going to fight at Full Gear at this point. Christian Cage versus Adam Cole. It's part of the story. Same thing with the Young Bucks and Jurassic Express. Everything makes sense. To me, it's not a shocker. To me, there's like two matches where I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Didn't see that coming. And everyone's like, oh, Hangman is circled. Hangman is going to win. But what if Tony Khan circles the losers? What if he puts an emphasis on this is the person who will lose the match? Everyone just assumes that the circle means the winner. But what if it's not? You don't know how his brain works. You don't know. But my God, Tony Khan, that's the point. It's like he did this to keep himself in the conversation, to keep AEW in the conversation. And Jesus, if he didn't choose violence this week to stay in the conversation, I don't know what else he was doing. WWE announces, right, that they're overrunning SmackDown by 30 minutes this Friday, right, to overlap with Rampage. So because SmackDown is going to be on FS1, they want to make a big splash. They're adding 30 minutes. Main event is Sasha versus Becky. And WWE announces that, yeah, we're going to stretch it out till 10:30. Going head to head for at least a half hour with AEW Rampage. First time ever in the history of all things that two wrestling shows go head to head on a Friday night. And he's like, and I remember his response was, all right, cool, right? He was like, I welcome the challenge kind of thing. Cool. Next thing you know, he's announcing that he's doing a YouTube show an hour before Rampage. So from 9 to 10 Eastern on YouTube. I'm doing a buy-in. The AEW lingo for a pre-show available for free on the internet for youtube.com/AEW wrestling, or just AEW. I don't know. I'm subscribed, so I just click on the thing. So I was like, all right, cool. And he announces like, I'm doing Bobby Fish and Daniel Bryanson are going to be in action. And all right, interesting. Okay, cool. So, and then people are like, are they going to be fighting each other? That'd be cool. Well, what he came up with was actually pretty cooler. First of all, he's bringing in our boy Lee Moriarty to fight Bobby Fish. I'm like, that's dope, right? And he's like, then Brian Danielson will also be in action. And who does he pull out to face Daniel Bryan on this buy-in show? But who else than Minoru Suzuki, who is wrapping up his tour of the North Americans, and he's like, I gotta use him one more time. Gives him a call, says, Minoru, can you be here? And he says, young boy, I will be there. Fuck you! And then he hangs up. Because I think that's about, that's a third of the English that Minoru Suzuki knows. Young boy, I'll be there. Fuck you. So that's the cool thing. So he announces Bobby Fish, Lee Moriarty, and then next thing you know, he's dumping Daniel Bryan and Minoru Suzuki on our unworthy crowns, right? And here's what's fantastic. This is a match. Think about it. Like, I want y'all to take a step back. I want you to go back to April, March this year. Daniel Bryan was getting prepared and hype for his big WrestleMania match. Just 6 months ago. 7 months ago at this point. He was getting ready to fight in WrestleMania, and people were sitting around saying, wouldn't it be great if Daniel Bryan could go to Japan and have all these great matches with Kazuchika Okada, with Hiroshi Tanahashi while he still can, and Minoru Suzuki, and look at what's happening. Just a few months later, the book is open. Daniel Bryan can do whatever he wants. Daniel Bryan tells Tony Khan, he says, I'd like to go to Japan. Tony Khan says, no, don't worry, Bryan. I'm going to bring Japan to you. That's how much I like you. I don't know. I'm exaggerating. I'm creating a scenario here that probably doesn't exist. We are getting one of these aforementioned dream matches. They had the last time these two fought was in 2004. Bryan was probably 5 years in the business at this point. 4 years at the most. 5 years at the most. 4. Like, he was still young. Minoru Suzuki, out of Pancrase, chip on his shoulder, just wants to beat the shit out of people. And that's what happened. Now we're getting Daniel Bryan, established as a legend, one of the greatest wrestlers of our generation, probably one of the greatest American wrestlers of all time. At the peak of his popularity, a guy who is beloved by all, casual fans, hardcores, going up against another legend in Minoru Suzuki. And we're getting it for free. We're getting this for free. And not free TV. Not commercial free. We're getting this, all you need is an internet access free. You have a phone, you go to your library, you order a chalupa, and you go sit in the Taco Bell parking lot free. That's what you do. That's where you get to watch Daniel Bryan versus Minoru Suzuki. And I still saw absolute cold shower dopes talking wrestling business like it's been frozen in carbonite since 1997. saying this match should have been kept for a pay-per-view. What do you give a shit about that for? First of all, the business has changed so much. You don't have to wait to put this. This is a throwaway match to try and capitalize on the fact that one of the legends of the business is still in the United States of America. And we're going to try and use them, bring them on TV for a one-off match. There's no build to it. We don't need the build. What are you talking about, you dope? We don't need a build for this. You didn't need 3 weeks, a month of Daniel Bryan and Minoru Suzuki cutting segments on each other. I don't give a shit. The minute you announce it, I'm into it. We got 2 weeks of build for Daniel Bryan versus Kenny Omega. Did we need more? No, because some matches just make themselves. There's another company who feels that these special matches are going to need like 3 months build to get to create the anticipation necessary. But the match, like Jason Piastri just said in the chat, the match is the build. It's that simple. My God, these people say, what a bad business move. But what do you know about it? You clearly don't know. You don't know anything about this business. If you're sitting around saying this should have been reserved for a pay-per-view, you don't understand how the rights games work. You don't know how television works anymore. You don't. You don't. You've been sitting around sniffing those old observers that you had back in 1997 when everyone was trying to convince each other that the ratings were super important, to the enjoyment of what a wrestling match is, and somehow this bled into how wrestling fans feel about their preferred companies. Like, well, this is clearly the one I should be watching because there's more people watching. That doesn't mean anything. Not for you as a fan, as someone who's watching it. Yeah, cool that your promotion is succeeding. If your favorite promotion is succeeding and you want to follow it, that's fine. But it shouldn't have any implication on you watching a match happen. Saying to yourself, this should have been on a pay-per-view. Just fucking enjoy it. You're getting it for free. You got Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega going 30 minutes on cable television a couple of weeks ago. You didn't have to shell out $60 to watch it. What are you bitching about? No, you don't even have to. You could cancel your cable package, today and not have it tomorrow, and you can still watch the fucking match. And on top of that, even if you don't catch it live tomorrow on Friday, it'll be the easiest match to watch because it's YouTube. It's going to be on YouTube. You can watch it later, or it's probably, for a lot of people, a lot easier to watch it on YouTube on replay than it is to try and fiddle with their DVRs or the on-demand service from the cable companies. Absolute weirdos who think that this is a bad move. As a fan of pro wrestling, you can only embrace this. If WWE did shit this cool, but they don't. Because they're about the status quo, folks. They're about keeping things the way they are. You don't believe me that this is not a company, that WWE is a company that is about the status quo? Look at how their shows are formatted. Their shows always start the exact same way. A long, drawn-out promo for the first quarter hour, for the first ratings bit. You like the ratings so much, you like to talk about the ratings so much and how important they are. Well, the first bit of WWE programming, whether it be Raw, whether it be SmackDown, starts off with people sauntering down to the ring to give us 8 minutes of exposition just because you're an idiot at home and you don't understand why these people are fighting. We have to dive really deep into that for 8 minutes. And it's the same formula for the show week after week. And this isn't new. This isn't recent. It's been doing that for years. It's a company that is about the status quo, keeping things as they are. Don't shake the box. The box is full of stuff that's working. Just don't shake it, because the box might come apart. Don't shake it. Why couldn't WWE? That's the thing, is that WWE could do cool shit like this. They choose not to. Remember, these are choices. Oh, but Warren, if WWE did this now, people would say that they're just copying AEW. So what? So what? I don't care. Neither should you. You should embrace it. You should embrace this kind of stuff. You need someone to shake up the cage and make things interesting. It'll bring the best out of WWE. It'll bring the best out of AEW. And you know what? It'll bring the best out of everyone else underneath as well. Because you've got to know a whole ecosystem of wrestling companies outside of all of this. MLW, Ring of Honor, Impact, NWA. If the boys up top are doing good and are making things interesting, it benefits everyone. And it even trickles down into the indies as well. Get into it. This is cool. This is fun. Let them take shots at each other. That's what I was telling about. This leads into what I was saying about Tony Khan choosing violence. You'd think that this was enough with the 30-minute thing, but no, he goes on Robbie Barstool's podcast and he takes a shot at Monday Night Raw. And I quote, Tony Khan, I'm not saying for sure that we'll win, talking about Friday, right? I'm not saying for sure that we'll win, and maybe the odds are against us in some ways, but we're going to do the better show, you know. I know. If you don't believe me, watch the Go Home show, Raw. They did last night because it sucked. It's his words. And he's right. It was a terrible edition of Raw. But there you have the president, the CEO, the head booker, the head honcho of AEW out there calling out the competition, saying their product stinks. And then he goes off, was it today? And he's like, I can do commercial free too. If I choose to, I've got more money than they do. I'm like, my God, like he's out swinging. And I love it. I'm telling you. Mainstream televised wrestling has never been this fun to follow. Never been this fun to be involved in. And everyone is like, Tony Khan should keep WWE out of their mouth. He should keep his hate to himself. AEW, I'm going to try and not get over the top here, because I have been shouting a lot tonight. I've been pushing from the throat, not from the diaphragm. AEW is a company that was built on, let's say, heavy dislike for WWE, right? It was built to serve as an alternative to that product. It was built by wrestlers who tried to get into the system or were aware of how it worked and were not interested in that product, and with wrestlers who were in that company and needed to get out and have an alternative place to work. So Tony Khan going around saying, I watched Raw last night, it sucked, is absolutely on brand. You've got people saying it's classless as well. This is how AEW was built. This is how they reached down to the fan base of professional wrestling fans and said, look, we are going to give you something else. And they've always been about the other guys. That's how they were able to get this grassroots support, because they were creating this environment where it was sort of like going to be like this constant super indie show. That's what they were about. And if Tony Khan is going out there right now screaming and saying, WWE sucks, they can come after me on Friday, it's not a problem, you know, I can spend as much money as I want, let him do it. Let him do it. Vince McMahon did the same thing Back in the 90s, Eric Bischoff did the same thing. No one is classy here. No one is like, oh, I'm above the... They've all done it. Paul Heyman built ECW. Built ECW off the backs of WWE and WCW. That's exactly it. It's like, look, both of these companies suck. The real workers are down here. I'm paraphrasing, but that's all what they've done. Eric Bischoff challenged Vince McMahon to a fight. I'll fight you, Vince. Do you think that people back then said, oh, wow, bold move, Eric, bravo? No! People thought it was stupid. The same type of reaction that we're getting today. But that's part and parcel. These are wrestling promoters. Wrestling promoters. This is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to get you excited for their product. They're supposed to tell you my product is better. Not, well, you know, when you compare, statistically speaking, what we do, you know, I think our main advantage is, you know, the cast of colorful characters that we have. No, that's not it. And the fact that WWE doesn't do it nowadays, or at least not as pronounced, not as direct, because Triple H has had his moments, right? Let's be honest. The only reason they don't do it is because they haven't done it for the past 20 years. They don't feel like they have to do it. But trust me, had there been anyone else in the meantime posing this kind of threat, I'm willing to bet that at least once Vince would have pulled out a full-page ad in a magazine, in a newspaper, outlining all the reasons why the other guy's product is bad and advertisers should shy away. Just like he did. I don't know what to tell you. Now, I was discussing this with the First Lady, Kristen Ashley herself, by the way, Justin Firestein, beep boop, DGMC, nice to see you all. I was discussing this very subject with Kristen a couple of nights ago. And we got into a legitimate area where we cannot find common ground. Kristen, on her end, says that this type of behavior, and I want to do this because it's an interesting counterpoint, even though I don't agree with it. It's still an interesting counterpoint. Kristen advances that this type of behavior enables toxic behavior on the internet. You know, the fan bases that are already very, very grimy and in some circumstances just terrible and awful, really. This just gives them more ammunition for and against. It just helps devolve the situations, right? It just helps devolve everything. And I'm like, well, I mean, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. But then maybe maybe it's because I am an old school fan and I was around the boards as well back then, back in the 90s, at the height of the Monday Night Wars and in RSPW on Usenet. Maybe it's because it's all stuff I've seen before and there is no reactions that I'm seeing that aren't similar to what I've seen in the past. People get bent out of shape for the same types of reasons. Maybe that's part of why I can't quite see eye to eye with Kristen's viewpoint, which I think is a fair one. I, as a wrestling fan, see fires getting stoked. I see people getting excited about their products. And that's the nature of the beast. That's exactly it. It's sports. It's not like politics. Where politics is like, you're not supposed to choose a team and support the team throughout. You're supposed to find people who connect with your values and support them. as opposed to I'm on this side of the spectrum and I'm only going to vote there. That doesn't make sense. Team sports, it's another thing. This is what it is. I love it. Tony Khan did this week. Fantastic stuff. I'm excited to see how all this is going to happen. I'm super excited for tomorrow. I'm very excited for tomorrow on Friday. Minoru Suzuki stuff, are you kidding me? GCW got some big news. They had a couple of shows this weekend. The Aftermath. We had the Aftermath and Fight Club. In the opposite order. Fight Club and the Aftermath. I was able to catch Fight Club. Unfortunately, not all of the Aftermath. But GCW shows are fun. And they're uneven, and I think that's kind of part of the charm. But not everything connects for me on a GCW card. There's wrestlers, there's people, there's styles, there's stuff that doesn't always do it for me. But the highs are so high, they're soaring highs. Nick Gage right now is like he's a consistent high. Effie, Matt Cardona. That was brilliant stuff. What a great feud. What great build-up. And I was sure Cardona would be done with GCW. I was sure he was losing. I was convinced his GCW career was up, but no, he doubled down, brought in his girlfriend. If you don't think that GCW isn't a big indie, Lio Rush showed up as a surprise, unannounced. No, he was announced. But Thunder Rosa showed up unannounced to wrestle in the Scramble. Her first intergender match since 2019. She's not that old. Here I am going since 1962. And that's what makes, GCW what it is. It's not, the unevenness, discovering talent, finding the talent that you really like and connecting with them, and everything seems very intimate and close and loud and boisterous. There's a lot of good to it. The main event I thought was fine. Again, I'm on the record, right? I mean, there's no big surprise here. I'm not a big deathmatch guy. I don't care for it all that much. I like it in big circumstances. I enjoyed Nick Gage versus Matt Cardona more than this one if we're talking about recent death matches. I think this was pretty good. I thought it was, don't get me wrong, Mox and Gage just destroyed each other. Mox's back was mincemeat. Literally, I was floored. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. But I think, I have a weird curve. I haven't quite developed my rating curve for death matches yet, because I don't have the palate for it. So it's like, I liked it. It was brutal, but I felt like Gage Cardona told a better story. Anyway, the big news coming out of this weekend, right, is that GCW is going to be running the Hammerstein Ballroom. And that is huge news. Tremendous news. Now, I don't know, I got a wide variety of people here who listen to the MrWarrenHayes show. And a lot of what, a lot of people watch and may not know exactly what, the Hammerstein Ballroom, that's okay. It's a venue. Yeah, it's 3,000 people, it's not that big. There, maybe some people don't quite understand. the relationship that wrestling has with the Hammerstein, right? And I'm not saying this to gatekeep. I'll walk you through it. It'll be my pleasure, just to, because the Hammerstein, or the Manhattan Center, right? Was really sunk deeply into its relationship with wrestling back in January of 1993, when the first episode of Monday Night Raw was held there, right? Was recorded there, and they would produce the matches there, Raws there, for a few months. I think like a few months later in November, they started going back on the road, right? I don't think that they stayed all that long. The Manhattan Center then became the home for ECW when ECW would come to do shows in New York. They get out of Philly, so they would have cards that would be promoted at the Hammerstein in 2000, 2001, as well as the ECW One Night Stand pay-per-views once ECW became a WWE thing. Ring of Honor promoted cards in the building on a regular basis between 2007 and 2012. Got Kenta Kobashi in there, Misawa. TNA did some shows there as well. So, I mean, it's a venue that is knees deep in wrestling history, and with companies, promotions that all still exist today. Well, maybe not ECW, but most companies still exist today. And whose histories are intertwined with the Hammerstein. So so the fact that GCW is running it is a big deal. That means it's entering, like, there is a feeling of, GCW is taking a next step here. They're going into this beautiful venue, not without its faults. Everyone that I've heard who's watched wrestling shows at the Hammerstein, they're like, well, there's blind areas, there's spots that are just dreadful that you can't see, and so on and so forth. But the mystique of the building, what it represents, I think it really does indicate that GCW is taking a next step. It's going forward. It's taking its standing and entering it into a pantheon of very well loved, where very special wrestling matches occurred, very special wrestling events. Maybe WWE Raw back in the day, it was a new thing. It was something different. Sure, it was, in the whole new generation era, that's a whole other ball game. But the intimate aspect of it, it felt special. And there's something that does feel special about the ballroom. So that's a big deal. And I'm really glad that they're doing it. I think it's great. I think it's a sign. I think it's a sign that they're doing very well. And if you want another sign that they're doing very well, they announced today that they're launching LA Fights. What is LA Fights? Well, I'm about to tell you. By reading the press release, Game Changer Wrestling is proud to announce the launch of LA Fights, a California-based promotion intended to serve as a companion to GCW on the West Coast. Similar to GCW's Jersey Championship Wrestling brand on the East Coast, LA Fights will provide an additional showcase for both the West Coast rising stars and Southern California legends to compete on the GCW platform. That's badass. Because you know what that means, right? This is what it means. Hey, Jack Davini, welcome to the chat. Sorry if I butchered your last name. What's really awesome here is what this means is GCW is creating its own feeder system. That's essentially what it is. You're going to have guys and gals on the East Coast. You're going to have guys and gals on the West. and then the who are going to be wrestling on a regular basis, and outside of the official GCW brand. And they said, Brett Lauderdale said that the LA fights would be like the GCW shows. They'd be broadcast for free on the YouTube channel. So it's promotion for GCW. You're going to get to see these up-and-comers, these new stars on YouTube. And then the marquee GCW shows, that's where they're going to end up. That's the achievement that they're going to want to they're going to want to reach for. How about that? How about like having why not having this type of environment for the indies? I think it's great. And I think it comes across as a very good move for GCW's future. Because it's not as if GCW is going to run out of independent wrestling talent at any given time. That's inconceivable at this point. GCW is a national indie. You can't say that it's territorial. It's not, let's say, like Warrior Wrestling that works out of the Midwest or Zello Pro, or beyond, out of the north, out of the Northeast. This is a national indie from top to bottom, and it's going to be creating its own stars. How can you not get excited about that? Well, I think you can not get excited about it. I don't want to. No, I can understand why people are like, whatever. You don't like indie shows. That's fine. But if you are a fan of GCW, if you are a fan of the independent North American independents, this is great. More exposure, more work. This is good for talent. It's great for GCW. I hope it works out wonderfully for them. Just before we wrap things up, there was a casting call that was a casting notice, that was released earlier this week. And you're probably sitting there saying, Warren, why are you talking about casting notices to me right now, your viewer, listener of the Mr. Warren Hayes show? Why are you talking about casting notices on your wrestling podcast? Well, the casting notice was released by Wow Women of Wrestling. That upstart that made news last week about its imminent return to wrestling, headlined by one Tessa Blanchard and everything that entails. And AJ Lee, let's not forget AJ Lee. Focus on the positives too, Warren. But they put out a casting notice this over the past 7 days or so, in regards to the show that they want to produce. Here's a few things of interest. Like we've discovered, thanks to this, when they are going to start taping. They're going to start taping on January 4th, 2022. The auditions, as they're calling them, are going to be on October 14th, so today. And they're going to start callbacks at the start of November. The jotted down here as the executive producers of the show are Jeannie Buss, who is the owner of the LA Lakers as well, AJ Mendez as an executive producer, and our boy Dave McLean. And not only is he the executive producer, he is the sole producer, David McLean. And not only is he the executive producer and the producer, but he is also casting director, a talent, a position that he shares with one Tessa Blanchard. That's right, Dave McLean, Tessa Blanchard, listed as casting directors. We even figured out that they are going to be paying $350 to $5,250 per event. That's $5,000 per event. And I'm assuming that's for like a full day of taping as opposed to per show. That would be my guess. But, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I've worked all of this out. And here's the thing. Here's the here's a little bit of the abstract that they have here. Viacom CBS presents the new season of WoW, Women of Wrestling. We are seeking female heroines and the villains for 52 weeks of original programming. So that captured my attention because the last incarnations of WoW, that we had were seasons, right? And they were like maybe 10, 12 episodes, something like that. And then they take a year off and come back for another season. So now they're going for the full calendar year of programming. I'm like, okay, that's ambitious. If you have a big personality, are athletic, and are willing to be trained in high-flying stage combat, this casting is for you. Not be trained in professional wrestling. High-flying stage combat. We are a body-positive company seeking all nationalities and ethnicities. Prior experience in gymnastics, tumbling, dance, and sports, a big plus. Hang on a second. Gymnastics, tumbling, dance, and sports. And they're a plus, right? They're not requirements. They're a big plus. Now, I'm not, so you don't want wrestlers for your wrestling show, is what you're telling me? It is a plus to have a background in sports, fitness, stunts, gymnastics, tumbling, acrobatics, etc. Outgoing over-the-top personalities that are coachable and easy to adapt in multiple situations. But no wrestling. So, folks, here's what's amazing to me when I'm reading this is that WWE has cornered the sports entertainment aspect of pro wrestling, whereas WoW Women of Wrestling is going to corner the high-flying stage combat experience. Look, I like AJ Mendez. I am glad she is back involved in something that resembles professional wrestling. But when you're putting out casting calls, when you're looking for women to have training, but a plus to be sporty and have, to have prior experience in gymnastics and stunts and sports, but never mentioning wrestling, I don't know. I'm not excited about this. I wasn't excited in the first place. Y'all heard my reactions to this last week. No big surprise. But the main things that I think the main takeaways that we have to take here. Hey, STS Pod! Thank you for subscribing. Here are the main takeaways. AJ Mendez is an executive producer of the show. Tessa Blanchard is clearly deeply involved in the creative process. So she's going to be a casting director. She's going to be picking out the women. And you don't need to be a wrestler to be on Women of Wrestling. Wow! Women of Wrestling on Viacom CBS. Oh, boy. Ultimately, if it's a good wrestling show they put on, that's all that matters. That's the weekly wrestling inspection. I'm thirsty. What are you going to do? Cut the stream? I'm done. I'm finished. I'm done anyway. There's nothing else to talk about. It's been 3 weeks I want to talk about Joe Gacy. But he keeps getting bumped. There's more interesting stuff to talk about than Joe Gacy and that. Anyway, maybe next week I'll talk about Joe Gacy. Who knows? Well, and as we're wrapping up, I want to say hi to Pluggo, who came in towards the end here, and Diego Rafael Solis Rivera. I want to thank you for dropping in here at the very last minutes of the show. But I want to thank everyone, even if you're just popping in here at the last minute. That's fine. If you were here the whole way through, that's great. That's amazing. If you were here for part of it, that's great too. Consider giving the video a like, a thumbs up, subscribe like STS Pod Club did. Why not do that kind of stuff? It's fantastic because, support is good. Support is great. But you guys and gals and everyone in between, you're so supportive of everything I do here, and I really, really appreciate it. I honestly do. You guys are absolutely fantastic week after week. People popping in here, listening on demand as well. I seriously thank you. It never gets old. I never take you for granted. It's always humbling. I always like to think, because that's how I am, I always like to think that y'all stick around because you really do enjoy what I do. And, you're not just here out of, pity. In any extent, I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget, hey, you know what? If you're hanging around watching the Suzuki Brian Danielson match tomorrow, pop on into the Discord. The Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord is going to be alive tomorrow. I am convinced. Links are in the description. We would love to have you come hang out with us. Just like I enjoy you coming to hang out with me every Thursday night. Thank you, everyone, for joining me again. Have a good evening. I'll see you next time.